When you're diving on it, most threats to Australia's Great Barrier Reef aren't that obvious. Although half of it has disappeared over the last 30 years, choose your spot carefully and there are still bright corals and plenty of fish. You don't notice the subtle change in water temperature due to climate change. And the coal ports being built along the reef's closest coast are, from here, far out of sight. But one threat, once pointed out, is all too obvious: the spiky crown-of-thorns starfish. There is a plague of them down here. They feed on coral and can be toxic to fish. Scott Firth is one of a team of people fighting back, injecting the starfish with poison. It works, but is a huge effort.
The amount of damage that they can do to the coral, and I've seen it firsthand, is quite amazing. And the coral's facing enough threats as it is. The crown-of-thorn starfish, at least, is something we can actively do something about.
The starfish are thriving because there's an increase in the sea of the microplankton that their larvae feed on. One starfish can produce as many as 60 million eggs a year. Far more are surviving than should.
There have been outbreaks of crown-of-thorns starfish in the past, but this latest one is the worst, and it's human activities on land that are largely to blame.
Growing sugarcane is big business along Australia's east coast. Its farmers use fertilisers, but when the excess washes off the land into rivers and down to the sea, the fertilisers feed the plankton. Tony Bajaya has changed his farming practices, applying fertilisers much more precisely than he once did.
So basically we're only applying chemical on basically 40% of the area.
But once you'd have put it everywhere.
Oh yeah,
in the old days.
Yeah. Runoff from our properties goes straight into that salt water. So what we do on this land does affect the reef.
But Bajaya is a relatively young farmer around here. Getting his older neighbours to change their practices too isn't easy. When Barack Obama came to Australia last November, he told students he was worried about the Great Barrier Reef and wanted it to be there for his yet-to-be-born grandchildren. His concern echoes the United Nations. Action globally and locally is needed for the reef to survive. Andrew Thomas, Al Jazeera, on Australia's Great Barrier Reef.